Hey guys, welcome to the Below Deck Med After Show here on AFTERBUZZ TV. I can't wait to talk about tonight, so stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now.
Okay, cool.
That's awesome.
How do I become one?
You're already on your way.
Bravo
You're on your way.
You're a super fan of Bravo, so there you go.
Right. You guys are going to see me on the next episode or the next season of Below Deck. I'm definitely... I want to be the naughty yachty like
This
Tiffany.
is like breaking news.
And she definitely has the best Twitter handle. My
true.
Twitter handle is @JamieBanks_, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. And what about you guys?
I'm Angela Struck, and you can find me on Twitter @TheAngelaStruck and on Snapchat and Instagram @AngelaStruck.
Yes, and I'm Madison Conklin. You guys can find me on Twitter @MaddieSaysThis and on Instagram @Conklin, CONKLYNN.
Nice. I'm Michael Rippe. What's up, guys? You can find me all over social media @MikeRips, MikeRips.
And live chat us.
Oh yes,
yeah.
live chat us with your ideas to talk about, and we might get to them during the show.
Yeah.
So first, I wanted to start out with the Brian and Tiffany whole, like, the tension, the build-up, everything. What did you guys think?
Yeah, when I heard that he was in SAE, I knew
We both-
exactly who that guy was. I mean, we were both
SAE.
sorority girls, so...
Yeah, so it's understandable.
What are you trying to say?
Were you in a frat?
You just...
Well, that doesn't matter. I'm just wondering what you're trying to say about SAE.
you know
boys.
the stereotypes.
They're kind of tools. They're kind of
Ooh.
party, fratty guys. Listen, they're fun. I had a lot of SAE friends, but I wouldn't want to date one
lot.
necessarily.
She
You know what I
maybe-
mean?
Maybe had a bad experience. Who knows?
Maybe.
Oh no. But yeah, he was very much like fitting the stereotype.
He was.
With
and
his
it was,
performance in that
the
hot
more,
tub.
The more he drank, the drunker he got. You know, he was like totally just going back to that, like, oh, I'm so awesome and tight, bro. And if you don't want to hook up with me, then you. And it's like, okay, relax. Like, at first, before we started the show, I was like, all right, Tiffany and Brian need to hook up. Like, this needs to happen. There's so much sexual tension. And then, you know, they got in the hot tub. And then it just went downhill from there because he got way too drunk, and she was like, this is awkward.
So that led me to a question, not just for you guys, but also for you out there. How drunk was Brian on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well,
That was
1
my
being sober,
question.
10 being blacked out.
1 being sober, 10 being as drunk as you possibly can. Tell us how drunk he
Yes.
was. I want to know what you think.
I was thinking the same thing, Michael. I wanted to know how drunk he was because he had already sealed the deal. He had it locked up. If he had just shut up, and then the next morning he kind of said Tiffany wanted it and then didn't, and he kind of like got turned off by her, and I was like, does he
That's
remember?
not what happened.
Yeah, but my question is, did he remember?
No,
or did he was
Probably not.
He
was
making
probably
that up?
just like going off of like little blurbs that came back into his memory because
At a point, he did say that he wasn't really sure what happened the
think
night
he
before.
was.
Right.
So he didn't really remember, but it was interesting how they both kind of had a little bit of a different story than I think what we saw.
But
Yeah.
Tiffany was
Interesting-
definitely more sober. Like, you could tell she was in control of everything.
Tiffany,
She was fine.
Tiffany's
I'm just curious.
experienced.
I'm with him. I'm with Michael. I want to know how drunk people think Brian was.
It was interesting because I felt like at one point he could have been exaggerating it, but then once he like talked to the cameras like, oh, I'm gonna hook up with her, I was like, okay, he's very intoxicated.
And like blatantly threw it out there. He's like, I want to F you. And she was like, oh.
that is not the way.
We
Leave
got a
imagination.
hilarious comment. So this Miriam Ibrahim says that she doesn't think he's as drunk as much as she thinks that his fall on the boat gave him a concussion.
That's hilarious.
That could be very true.
But I didn't think it was cool of him. And obviously, again, alcohol changes the way you think, you say things. But he called her, can I say a B word?
I mean, you can say whatever you want.
And then he was like, you're disgusting. Like,
That-
get out of my face. It's
I
like,
believe it was
dude,
crazy
relax.
dragon drunk bitch.
Ooh.
Yeah.
WTF, Ryan.
Also,
Oh, go
points
ahead,
out of my
Michael. Go
book.
ahead.
well, he said on one hand he wasn't going to be a frat boy. He was different than the other frat boys, and then
Yeah.
he acted exactly like a frat boy, which I'm not opposed to. It just he's contradicting himself. But you know, alcohol changes everything.
So do you think this is going to impact their relationship?
Definitely.
Like,
I
you
mean,
think Tiffany's totally just done and maybe like we'll move on to Danny?
You can
or
see
Bobby
how
or...
awkward it was the next day, and
Yeah.
I just felt like it was super awkward.
Well, Jamie, didn't you do a poll?
Yes, actually. So thank you guys all who voted in the poll.
On
And
Twitter.
On Twitter, thank you, on my Twitter. And everybody, well, majority thought Tiffany and Brian had the best chemistry. The second close call was Hannah and Ben, or actually was Hannah and Ben.
Yeah.
But after tonight, I don't think
I was gonna
that's
say,
the case.
maybe
It all
No.
switched up. No, I mean, well, first of all, Joseph Boza, who joins us every week. Shout out to Joseph Boza.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you for your comments. He's saying that their sexual frustration is starting to show after 6 charters, and 100%. The couples are getting real.
Yeah.
Bobby is like freaking out for Julia. Hannah and Ben
know.
were adorable on that date.
Yes.
And
You're skipping way ahead, girl,
Tiffany
but yeah.
and Brian, I'm still not losing hope in them. I still
I
think that
know.
Tiffany and Brian are gonna get it on. I think that right now she's a little annoyed at him, and she seems like a strong woman and pretty mature, that she's not impressed with that like boyish stuff. But I think that she's gonna have a few drinks at the end of this charter and probably get it on.
You know who doesn't have good chemistry? Brian and Danny.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm just starting to feel bad for Danny because they're ganging up on him, and like even Jen too. She's like, you know, it's pretty much Danny and Jen versus Brian and Bobby. You know, like that's, and they're all on a team together, and it's just so frustrating because like the bromance between Bobby and Brian is so apparent. Like they were off playing with the charter guests, and then they don't get yelled at, and Jen pointed that out, and it's like, what gives, man? Like
we really have to go over Danny again. But the
I know.
problem with Danny is that he's told specific things not to do, and he does it anyway just because of what he feels is right, and that's just not how it works.
I thought that
Right.
I thought we were seeing patterns at this point that have been continuous, and I think we talked about it in the past few episodes. In this episode, Danny was a bit player in this episode, which was nice to see, not the focus on other things, but.
Yeah.
Bob, I mean, I think he's being treated a little unfairly at
No,
this point. It's
I
clear.
agree, but he has deserved it. I mean, they have to treat him with kids' gloves at this point
Well,
because they think he's the liability. They
think
can't trust him.
I think Brian is completely out of his element when he talks to Danny at this point. He just kind of says things to him that don't really make sense.
Well,
and
I
they're
agree.
contradictory.
I think Brian is a bit on a power trip at this point.
Well,
I
yeah.
think he thinks he's got the girl.
You think?
I think he's at the club and he's like walking around like he's the president of SAE, and he's just like
back on campus.
Yeah, I
what's
mean,
up?
big man on campus. He's got that syndrome for sure.
Big man on campus.
Nonetheless, it's definitely just
Maybe
interesting that in past episodes how we were very anti-Danny, or there's a lot of heat against Danny. It almost seems like it's turning now that maybe Danny is
Brian.
a little bit of a nice character.
Yeah,
It's
I
interesting.
think so. I mean, I like Danny this episode, and I don't think he did anything like wrong or mean this episode. Not that he was mean in the past, but you know what I mean. Like, I
Right,
really
kind of
liked him
talking back or
this episode, and I also like Tiffany a lot. Like, I feel like the first episode or two of our
Yes.
after show, I felt like we were sort of like a little bit cold towards her.
Yeah,
but
we
now
were.
I like
Sorry,
love
Tiffany.
her.
Love
She's
you.
sweet.
Much love.
She's
I
really
do too.
improving,
Yeah.
and I really like her. And especially in that hot tub, I've totally like sided with her. I was like,
respect.
here's this guy like completely like being rude and gross to you, and you're just like handling yourself really well. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Well, and then I made a note that she kind of always seems iffy about Brian as the night, like, you know, she's, as I drink more, he looks better. And it's like, so are you, what? And then she's like, oh, he's a good kisser. I'll let him do it again. It's like, wait, so do you want to hook up with him? Or are you just like kind of waiting around for
I think
something?
she's a little drunk, and I think she's
yeah.
like, you know, a little
But
bored
this
on
was
the
her
boat.
commentary.
Yeah.
So she was clearly sober
Well,
when
I
she was
think
saying
she's like
that,
thinking about what she was like her thought process at the
In the
time.
moment.
I think she's
Okay.
like, well, the more I drank, the cuter I thought he was, and like whatever.
Yeah.
And then he got like wasted with slurring his words, calling me names, saying he was going to lightsaber me, and like,
Yeah,
you know, I think it was just like, come on.
Ew.
But
Brian,
At
come
this
on,
point,
you
I
can do
think
better.
that Tiffany is more into Brian because of situation than actual being into him.
Right,
so
because
far.
the people that are paired off, is that what you mean?
It's just right. She's on the situation
She's
that
really
she's
only
in
got
is,
him or Danny,
is
like-
causing it easy because he's pursuing it. They're drinking together, but I don't think if you separated them off the boat at this point in their relationship and they were with a lot of people in their normal habitats, they might
would
not
choose
go
each
for
other.
each other.
Right,
Right?
right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are agreeing with us that they think that Brian is, you know, just not the best boss at this point. I think he is on a power trip, and I think it was actually hilarious to see Tiffany just be like, no, like I
Shut
don't
him
care
down.
that
That
you're
hurt his
you're,
ego, and that's why
yeah.
he started calling her names. Is 'cause
Right.
his ego was bruised, and he's like,
Very
well, she don't
immature.
hook up with me.
Yeah.
I don't like her anymore, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Go to bed.
Yeah.
Go to bed, wake up with a hangover, and do
Michael,
what, do
I
what you
liked
do.
how you said that situational thing about that's why they're kind of into each other, because that's why I kind of feel like about Julia and Bobby, just because, like, you know, she's clearly in love with her boyfriend who's not there, but on
Matty.
the boat, Bobby is the hottest one to her in the moment. So it's kind of the same thing. I think she just wants that attention.
She does, and it's interesting to me because she's clearly she's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And that was
I
a
love
sweet
her.
moment when she's talking to
Julia.
her
So sweet.
boyfriend.
I love you.
But there is a part of it, I think she's a little bit where she likes the attention because she's of she's like leading Bobby on a little bit more than I think is appropriate if she doesn't want anything to happen. 'Cause
Flirting is healthy.
I
Just
agree.
being healthy.
But I mean, the touching of the butt, because she's saying in this episode how he's coming on to me a little too strong, but she's feeding the fire.
She's definitely fueling the fire. But I also relate to her in the sense that it's tricky when you're in a small group like that, because what does she withdraw and like
And
kind
just
of
be
give him
miserable?
a cold shoulder, and then everybody be like, oh, you know, Julia's kind of a bitch,
Right.
Like, or does she kind of play along and then people are like, oh, look, she's flirting? It's a tough
It is.
line.
No, because I feel like if she does continue to flirt, it's gonna be like, well, you're leading him on, and that's not cool. And then if it's like, well, you're ignoring him, you're not part of the family. You know, like she kind of turns herself away from the whole family.
And the others are all coupling off too.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm sure she feels
So-
pressure. Like Hannah's her good friend.
Yeah.
Her and Ben got something cooking.
And the other two.
And then the other two, yeah.
I think she should just be more forthright at this point with Bobby and say, listen, I mean, I like you a lot as a friend. You know, it's fun to flirt, but I'm serious with my boyfriend. I don't see that at any point.
I feel like she said that though.
She said it
She
in
said
like
a
the
lot.
second episode or something.
Okay.
She like explained it and whatnot. But
He just doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
Like, it's going in one ear and going out the
it
other.
seems like, and maybe if you're watching Bobby, let us know. It seems like at this point, as we're watching, that Bobby thinks he's got a chance, and also even the charter guests at this point are
She's giving
noticing
signals.
it.
Yeah.
She's definitely
So-
giving signals. Yeah. Like, or what one would very likely interpret as
Oh,
signals.
absolutely.
Well, I mean, they're both very attractive people. Like you can't help that, you know. And of
Yeah.
course, there's going to be a little bit of
Close
attraction, whether or not
quarters,
she,
yeah.
whether or not she
Hey,
goes
Maddie.
through with hooking.
Who's a more attractive person?
Oh my god.
Bobby?
There are no categories. One's a guy,
Julia.
one's a
Is the
girl.
sky
They're both
blue?
perfect.
Is the sky blue?
Yeah, and I kind of feel like Julia, in her head, she is attracted to him, but she just thinks it's harmless, like playful flirting. But I
Yeah.
think he sees that as he has a chance with her.
It's an
but
end.
in her head, she's like, okay, I'm flirting, and that's all I mean by it.
Right.
So maybe if she just said that to him, it might communicate,
Right.
you know, a little bit better.
Were any of you guys like kind of torn to pieces when she was talking to
Yes,
her boyfriend?
I wanted to
And
cry.
she told, like, was that the smart thing for her to do? Was to
No.
say, hey, this is what's going on. A guy's flirting with me.
I don't think she prefaced it right,
No.
too. It seemed
Right.
like it was like she was about to tell him maybe that she had hooked up with him next.
Yeah.
It was,
Right.
it was very like, obviously he's quiet.
And
He's
he
like,
should
what's
have been
next?
like, listen, babe, I just want to let you know, like, there's this guy who's coming on to me, but I'm making it very clear that
But she's
I'm
not
not
making it very
interested.
But that's
Yeah.
the thing. That's the same thing with Bobby. I don't think she made it clear with the boyfriend. She didn't say, listen, I love you, Maddie,
Yeah.
and there is a guy that's into me, but I'm not doing anything. She's just like, so I want you to know there's this guy.
Yeah, going in on it or
Kind of
whatever.
talking to me, and it wasn't like at any point she gave him any sense of like
Yeah.
security.
Yeah. Security,
if I was her,
closure.
I would not have said that. I just wouldn't have until it became an actual problem. Like if
Yeah.
something happened, but before then, you're just worrying him. He doesn't need to know. And I
He's
mean,
so far away too.
Yeah, he's
Like,
so far away.
What's he gonna
can't
do now?
anything.
Not sleep, and she's not gonna sleep, and it's just
Tough
Yeah,
position.
but
It
it's
is.
tough because I mean I think they only have a few more charters left,
Mm.
and I think you know the fact that the guests are calling it out, saying you guys look flirty, and they're grabbing each other's butts or whatever. I
goosing.
think it is
They're
at that
goosing.
line where she's like, oh gosh, I don't want him to look at this later and think I was dishonest with him.
Yeah.
Like
She's a sweetheart, though.
They are on
yeah,
TV,
she
so
is very sweet.
Julia, you just do you.
Keep doing
You've got
that.
a good head on your shoulders. I love you. And Bobby, you know how I feel.
Very
so
sweet.
we're
Nothing
done.
was cuter though than Hannah
We're done.
and Ben's date.
yeah. So what do you guys
That
think
was the
about
cutest
Hannah
thing
and Ben? I
ever.
mean, I loved how he asked her. It was cute, and it was like you didn't know if she was gonna say yes or not, or
Yeah.
if she was kind of just gonna leave him hanging.
Yeah.
It was so chivalrous too.
It
He was
was.
so cute, and
Ben
she was smiling
warms my
like
heart.
a
He warms
schoolgirl
my heart.
from ear to ear. It was just adorable. So I'm kind of rooting for
And I
those
think
two.
Ben has really good intentions. You know, like, yeah, he kind of yelled at her for, beating up on Danny and then apologized for that because they have to work so close together. And then he asked her on the date. But now, well, anyways,
Well-
the date was very cute.
It was cute, and Ben ever since we've known Ben from other seasons of Below Deck, Ben's always called it the way he sees it.
Yeah.
There's, you feel like he's very real.
There's no BS.
There's no
with him.
BS. He's
Yeah.
real as real can be. He's a smooth operator, and he's a charmer. He's very charming. And obviously, I think the fact that he's a chef is also it's an interesting quality. It's a uniqueness to him. And so it was nice. I liked how he said they were going to go provisioning.
Yeah, that looked pretty nice to go provisioning.
That's another question I'd like to ask the viewers out there is, was this a date? Because they didn't kiss at the end. He kind of didn't tell anybody it was a date.
And he made it seem like a happy hour cocktail thing.
It was flirty. He was saying that he, thinks she's cute. They were drinking.
That was a date.
it a date?
I say that's a date, but you're right. It's a great question,
Let us
Angela.
know,
So let us
definitely.
Yeah.
What I loved about it is I felt like it was so natural, like in a real relationship. It really felt like it was a natural progression, like of a friendship going into a relationship, rather than like, oh, we just think we're hot and we're in a hot tub in Greece. It was like, oh, we're getting to know each other. It was very sweet.
They stepped off and kind of peel back the layers of the onion.
And a little bit more authentic than we're just gonna hook up or anything like that.
Get wasted,
It was
hook
more
up, and then
authentic.
be like, oh, okay.
And also, I just want to say the reason I thought it was definitely a date is because when you saw them sitting down, he sat next to her, not across from her.
Oh, is this a
here.
man thing that we're learning? I never knew that.
So wait, does that mean something? Like, does that mean
should
hey, I
always
want to
means
be
he wants to
closer?
get a little
Yeah.
something under the table.
You're sitting next to me. So what does this mean now?
I think he paid for her too, right?
He did
He
work
did.
out,
That's a date
but
too.
I didn't
Good
know.
point, Jamie.
I didn't know if that was him being like, "Hey, we're gonna have to work together," and like just want to take you to dinner, bud. Like it was like I couldn't tell because there was no like kind of sexual nature to it. But maybe they've been flirty before.
There's so much tension between them.
There is
Like,
tension.
so much
I could
tension.
cut it.
There's tension.
Yeah.
But there was no touching.
It's all
Okay, because Ben's
it's a first date.
he's a real man.
Brit.
He's a real man.
Yeah.
But a little
like Ben.
kiss, a little kiss.
But you can, and you cannot. Look, he certainly knows where she sleeps and when he's going to have another
Totally
opportunity.
did that.
If there's a time where you can be a real man and
Yes.
just be no rush, then I think this was the time. So
Joseph Moses says if it was a date, it was a weird date. It almost felt like Ben and Hannah were looking for a chance to escape the boat. I agree. It kind of felt like, hey, like, buddy, like, let's go out and hang away from all these crazy people.
But that's healthy. There's
Moments of it
not
felt like a
trapped,
date, but moments of it didn't. I don't know.
Yeah,
guess.
I see your point. I think it was date-like, but I do see where you're coming
Yeah.
from. So let's talk about the new guests. So already they're
Bobby
coming
is
on.
in our live tweet.
Oh, hey, Bobby!
Bobby.
Madison
This is
just
great.
melted.
You can comment.
JK, Bobby, you're not that cool.
Bobby.
kidding.
She's in love with you.
I'm pulling a Brian right now, dude. Whatever.
Let's ask him. Bobby, did you feel like Julia was giving you a clear understanding of the boyfriend? Or situation, or did you feel pretty misled by her? Like now looking back,
He actually gets to watch like
So,
yay. Well, we'll
So
wait
we
for
should-
him.
yeah, we should-
Right,
for
back
him
to the guests.
reply, but
yeah.
so the new guests are coming on, and we know that they had a bad experience last time. So what happened exactly? They got sick. They were all
The food
throwing
made
up.
him really sick. Yeah.
So they already have that experience, and so there's definitely high expectations for them, and they want to do it well this time.
yeah. I guess the first hiccup of the food, whatever debacle, was that the charter guest didn't say, hey, the main charter guest can't eat tuna, and that's all Ben made for the first meal. So it was like, okay, you've already had an issue with food in the past. Make it very clear what you want, what you don't want. And then the whole espresso martini thing, he was like, I'm going to teach Hannah how to do it. Hannah made it, and he never said one thing about, oh, you should probably do this or that. It's
So
like, what?
yes, I
First,
love.
first, I would. Those are two separate issues. But first, you're right. I mean, it's the charter's fault to not let him know that you can't eat tuna if you can't eat tuna.
Yeah.
And then, secondly, as far as the espresso martini, that was pretty condescending of the guest to talk to Hannah like that. I
Well,
thought, and I thought
yes.
Hannah handled it really well, actually.
I'm loving what Joseph Boza is bringing up too, and I think it's the same charter guests that we saw in previous seasons, that they were so specific that the chef actually quit in the middle of the charter, for those who didn't watch, and because they were so annoying and so pretentious, and so somebody else stepped up and made them sick. As they stepped up as the chef and made them sick. So I think they came on with a mission to give some attitude and kind of, make their point about things.
Right.
But yeah, if you've got dietary restrictions, let people know. And you know, I thought he wanted to just make a point with that espresso martini.
Can I say
Right.
something about the food and Ben?
Go for it.
I've been thinking about this recently because they do this to us every episode. They show us like the guests, they might not be that into the food or that we're not sure what they're going to feel. At this point, can we stop with that? Can we just agree? Can we just agree that Ben is a great chef?
there's no question,
He makes
yeah.
incredible meals over and over, and I would
Yes.
like to see from Bravo a little bit better camera work on this instead of just like making us think that maybe they're not going to be into the meal. Maybe they can
Right.
show us what goes into the meal
I agree.
so that people can maybe cook it themselves. Obviously
Yeah.
not as well as Ben, but maybe give him some love with the ingredients that are put into each dish and on the side
He
of it.
does it fresh,
Something
though,
like that
so.
because we know that he's a great chef
He
at this
pulls
point.
it off every
He
time.
always pulls it off. It's not going to be that he didn't make good food. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
It tastes amazing. They always love it. So enough with the
looks
like
healthy,
what are
too.
the guests going to think? How
Yeah.
about we do something to support Ben and maybe give the ingredients to each dish or talk about the dish on the side with words, something like that.
I
Bravo.
agree. You know, like Bravo brought us top chefs, so
Yeah.
I definitely have a foodie audience. And there's no question, as you said, if somebody doesn't like what Ben cooks, in my opinion, it's their own fault because they didn't communicate their preferences.
Yeah.
Ben is able to cook to anybody's needs and restrictions, so I totally
Even if
agree.
we had like where they have confessional on Real World, even if we had like a 15-second or 10-second spot where he talks about, well, this is what I put into this meal and something
Great
like
idea.
that,
Or
just to
check
add
out the
to it.
recipe on his blog.
I think that would add another level to the
Yeah,
Bravo.
I hope
Totally.
we are helping you market yourself.
Yeah,
We're going to help you make money.
He's great.
And you know what?
Gotta give some to us,
He
too.
really kept his composure too. When this whole like tuna thing happened, he had to make something else really quickly, and he
Quickly.
did it calmly, collected, and
It's a
it was
great
still
point.
awesome.
He's a pro's pro,
Definitely.
Yeah.
you know?
yeah.
So I just thought it was awesome and hilarious that this couple wants to celebrate their 7th month anniversary, and they celebrate every month.
Every month.
That was so funny.
And
to
the
me.
way I was kind of confused how the girl explained it. She was getting off a charter and it took one look and then they started dating. Like, it was just really weird. But I loved how Hannah was like, so wait, you're telling me you're celebrating 7 months.
Guys,
Like, what the?
I can
What the
read that
what?
girl like a book. Like, she is like got her eye on this prize,
Yeah.
and she's like, every month we're gonna keep our relationship fresh by
Right.
celebrating an anniversary.
Well, and half the time
she's
he
wearing
wasn't
the
even paying
white
attention
dress
to
for
her.
the dinner. She's like looking for that ring, and she's
Oh.
going hard for it.
Yeah.
And so that's my opinion on that. I thought it was very tacky. Like, if you have a real relationship, just like chill a little bit. You don't have to have
Yeah.
a anniversary every month.
Every month.
They're
That would
what-
get exhausting. Do you
I
have to
don't
get a gift every month? Like,
Well,
oh,
if it works that
God.
way, then maybe I
Money.
should implement that into
Yeah,
my
They
relationship.
might get a cruise every month.
Maybe
so.
that's true love, though.
for them, sure.
Maybe,
One
yeah.
look after a
Crickets.
charter, yeah.
I don't know.
Dot,
maybe,
dot, dot.
maybe I shouldn't judge. But
I loved all the touches though, like the rose petals and the
Oh,
food.
they did.
That
and
was
everything.
really-
It was really
great.
sweet.
Yeah.
yeah.
They're very good at that. Hannah's very good at her job. She's just very good at getting things done and like the music and champagne. Oh, yes.
Definitely.
She
okay,
runs a
so
tight ship.
what did you guys think of the boat sinking? I didn't know what to make of that.
It was very like clustery for me. I was just like, okay, what is this boat? Why is it sinking? Aren't boats supposed to float? Like, it just gave me anxiety that I didn't need.
Yeah, it was interesting because at certain points it looked like there was serious issues with the boat and people were kind of chaotic and out of control. And then there were certain points where they just showed us the guys in the boat were just kind of chilling.
Right.
Like, it didn't seem that big a deal. So I was confused whether it was really a serious deal or it was a little bit made out to be a little bit more for the cameras.
Right.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we saw that
mean-
Danny was really involved in helping out. This is maybe the first time where we saw
Literally
Brian say
jumped
something
ship
nice.
to the next one. To,
Jump
like,
ship.
Yeah,
It
jump
seems
ship.
pretty
played.
intense. I mean, they were screaming Mayday and everything.
I
$1
know.
million boat going down.
I asked how much money it was. I was like, how expensive
I
is
was
this
way
mistake
off.
right now? It was crazy.
Well, didn't
We
they
don't
say
know
it was $1
boats.
million boat?
After,
Or
yeah.
Afterwards, yeah. I mean, boats are supposed to float. How did it start sinking?
Oh, well, I mean, that could have
Boats
been
are
a lot
supposed to
of.
float.
I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Just say.
If you take anything from this episode, boats are supposed to float.
There's just a, I also liked how the charter guests put on the life vest after. And they're like, "Have you seen the Titanic?
That was
We're
so
not going down
funny.
to the bottom deck.
that
That's
was
where they get
perfect.
trapped."
That was perfect.
They had a good sense of humor. I was a little nervous about them at first. I'm like, all right, hoity-toity, have all these, like, they already had a bad experience, so it's going to be, but I really liked them.
Yeah,
Besides the whole
I
weird
think so.
7-month
They were definitely
anniversary
better
thing.
this charter than their previous charter, although we haven't seen the end of this.
True, we haven't.
Which,
No, it's just beginning.
So during dinner, that was very chaotic. There was definitely some miscommunication between Ben,
like the
Hannah,
second
and
night,
everyone. Oh yes, the second one. what happened there? Like, who was at fault?
Well, it just seemed like you said it perfectly. There was a miscommunication between what was going to be coming out of the chef's quarters and what was going to be served. If it was going to be two servings or 3 servings, whether it's what they're calling it is clearly a contentious issue now, whether it's an entree or a canopy.
I think he was just
frustrated in the moment, but it seemed like from what we could see that Hannah just was maybe misrepresented what was going to be served in the right order. They went over it. It seemed like, and Ben said she asked him, "Can you please not have it something chewing down with the kebabs?"
Yeah.
So he said, "Sure, I'll do the salmon crostinis and whatnot." And so that's what it seemed like. And
don't you think it was slightly a product of her kind of caught up in her emotions? I felt like she was just like so like blissful about things. She wasn't like on point. I feel like Hannah normally would have it all together and have her list and boom, boom, boom. But I felt like she was just kind of like, and this and this and I didn't think like her head was in the game.
You know, everyone. You make mistakes, you miss something.
Yeah.
It seemed like she just probably missed the moment or forgot exactly what happened.
And he did change it a lot.
And so it wasn't the end of the world. I think it was just that it seemed like she was having trouble going up to communicate to them. And I don't know, like, is that really that big an issue? She probably could have communicated it pretty easily. Maybe they just made it seem like that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, I think Joseph might have said something when we were talking about Ben and the recipes, but somebody made a point being like, Ben probably doesn't even know what's in half his meals anyways 30 minutes after he makes it. Because, you know, like chefs just kind of
throw a little bit
throw
of this,
a little bit of that. And so he's probably like, I don't know what I made. It was fish with something and that was that, you know? But so I feel like that kind of contributed to the miscommunication is just his blase kind of feel for the kitchen, you know?
I think that's just his persona, though.
Yeah.
I think he's just he's cool under pressure, and we've seen that forever when there was fires in there. Like, no matter what, it seems like Ben is just, he's been doing it a while. He's confident in his abilities.
But when things don't go right, that's when, I mean,
then he gets frustrated if things don't go right. I think he gets frustrated, too, because he feels like he's doing everything right on his end.
Right.
And so that's where there's probably the issue.
I think another thing is they don't have a menu for the guests, but they should have a menu for
the
crew. You know, one of our comments in here says they should have a menu. Yeah, even if he doesn't want to put that out for everybody, they should at least be all on the same page and have it written down so there's no, you know, on a board or something.
Maybe they're going to implement
I would say this, though. That's probably a good idea to help at least Hannah and the rest of the crew. But I think when it comes to the food and Ben, I think Ben is in charge. Whatever Ben wants, it should go like that. But I think that they could obviously maybe make it easier for the crew so they know this is what I'm going to be delivering and whatnot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I felt like it was weird how Hannah didn't tell Ben what was happening because that slowed it down. Because had he just put the meat right then they wouldn't have been waiting so long.
Well, exactly.
But then it would have gone to waste if they didn't want it.
Well,
and
probably not. They must eat that
ate it.
food.
Well,
I'm sure, but it's still, you know, it's
They
probably
waste a lot of
expensive.
So I think at the core was just a little bit of an issue with Hannah's just communication in that moment. Which
Hannah's headstrong, so is Ben. They don't want to be wrong, so that's kind of, I feel
also, we didn't mention, but quickly, when they went to dinner and they talked about who their favorites were, Hannah named Julia as her favorite.
Which
and
is so obvious.
Ben named Danny. So I wonder if that, I feel like that probably irks Hannah a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I
I
mean?
like that Ben is Team Danny. I know I was
He's
so
just a
harsh
stand-up
like
guy.
2 weeks ago. I know.
I didn't get the vibe that she was aggravated by that, though. I thought, like,
she was just kinda like, oh,
Ben
good
likes
luck.
Danny because he's down there in the galley working with him all the time, helping out. And I think he has no reason not to like him because he's not working specifically with Danny, where potentially, you know, Bobby and Brian are giving orders and Danny just decides not to show up or something. That's a bit, you know, they have more of a right to be frustrated at it.
Right.
But,
yeah, that was crazy. I just can't even believe it. And I think it's funny that this date was so great between Hannah and Ben, and now, like, it looks like they hate each other.
So right, we're at the end of the show now, pretty much, and it like falls apart quickly for them.
Quickly.
And I think it's okay. I mean, there's natural, you know, frustrations with each other if something goes wrong is okay. And I think again, what we've seen pattern-wise with Hannah is that she's quick to dish it out, but she doesn't take it well if it maybe is against her. I mean, she cursed at Ben. Not saying he didn't curse or whatnot, but so there's a part of Hannah I think that she's good at giving her feedback, but she doesn't take it that well.
What, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. I'm
Look at you and your puns. She's so punny right now.
So many kitchen puns.
if you can't dish it out, or if you can't take it, don't dish it out.
There you go.
Another
we could
food
go on
pun.
forever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Strong engineering tonight.
So, is there anything we missed before we get into some predictions in a moment?
I was just going to say one comment is kudos to the casting team, whoever chose all of these dynamic personalities. You know, so many times in reality TV shows, they try and put people together and it just doesn't kind of click. Nobody jives. Couples, drama, enemies, frenemies, like there's so much like going on that they did a good job.
And is anyone else kind of craving to find out more about Jen?
Yes,
like
because we
she's
haven't
so
seen
quiet.
her.
That's what we said.
We never see her.
Last week.
We
week.
said
Oh
it
my
last
gosh.
week. I think she just sticks to herself. I think she's just quiet.
I know, but
I don't
we
know that
gotta
she really
see
wants
something from
anybody
her.
to know that much about her.
Yeah, maybe.
I think she's there to do her job.
But
And
obviously, she's not attracted to Danny, and vice versa. But I feel like there might be a very strong like connection between them, like friendship wise.
They seem
maybe
to be
even
building
like
a brother-sister
relationship. I really hope Danny, get to Jen. Peel back her onion layers. Let us know what she's all about.
I did like how you
everyone
said you
wants to
wanted
know.
her to smile.
I know.
That was sweet.
That was very
It's
sweet.
kind of funny how now at this episode we have kind of Danny and Jen on one team. I wasn't really expecting them
Yeah.
to be a
I
team.
didn't see that coming.
Weeks ago. So.
I think it's also just weird that the editing team didn't kind of show more Jen, just because I know like in reality TV they might be like, okay, well we're not seeing much of her, so let's just throw in a little story about her,
Right.
but we're not even getting
I
that.
think there's a lot of drama going on.
I guess.
and it's a packed
Lot
show,
of- yeah,
so
people, you
they've got to cut the
couples,
fat.
and whatever.
Another cooking.
cut the fat.
Love
Oh
it.
gosh! All right, you guys.
Cool.
Sorry about
Okay,
that.
so we saw some previews, so let's get into some predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Who wants to go first?
It was my prediction last week, and I'm sticking to it. I think that Tiffany and Brian are still going to hook up. I think they're going to
Like
get
all the
drunk,
way,
and
like
I
all the
think-
bases, or just like
I don't
make
know.
out.
I think that this wasn't the end of Brian Tiffany relationship, so that's my prediction. Then I also wishful thinking Hannah and Ben hope that they go somewhere because I think they're
yeah.
super cute, and I think they have a genuine connection.
I don't know what's gonna happen. I just people are gonna hook up, and it's gonna cause drama, and I don't have a prediction. If I think of one, I'll give it.
Okay. Well, I actually have the same prediction as Angela. I think that Tiffany and Brian are going to get closer. I definitely don't think this is the end of it. I think it's more of the start. And I definitely think they're going to go all the way at some point.
Yeah.
But I think that they're going to get closer. I also think maybe we see more Jen next week. At least I'm hoping for that.
Hoping.
Are you
Correct.
still banking on Julia and
And
Bobby?
Bobby.
You've been predicting that from the top.
I feel like this week was a
We're
bad.
getting pretty
This was
close.
Okay.
This was a rough week for it though, because I feel like Bobby is ready, and
Yeah.
now Julia is kind of like no.
Maybe
so
pulling back more than ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
do you think this might cause Maddie to break up with Julia and be like, let's revisit it when
That
you
was
get
my
back?
question. That if Maddie kind of responds like pissed at her, it could actually push her closer to Bobby.
I thought it was going to be the opposite, but I do see your point. I think maybe if she almost loses him, then she'll be like, oh, I really care about Maddie, so I'm going to just stick with him. But you're right. It could
Go
drive her
either
the
way.
other way.
Yeah.
That is definitely interesting. I think something major is going to happen between Hannah and Ben next week, so I think it'll either be really positive or really negative, or
yeah.
maybe negative first and then positive.
Do you think it's one of those relationships where like they fight, they make up, everything's great, then they fight, make up, everything's great?
Ben
Yes.
has had that relationship with every girl he's hooked up with on Below Deck in
Oh,
past seasons.
Ben.
Him and Kate would butt heads, and then they'd hook up, and yeah.
But Ben has no problem apologizing
Yeah.
or being a man
can
about it
fall on
and
his
talking it through instead of making it awkward. And so he's a man.
And I think he likes really tough, independent, strong women, and so they tend to be
Hannah.
more opinionated.
Yeah.
So that kind of causes some drama as well.
Our live chat says, Brian, Danny, a punch will be
Thrown
thrown.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Miriam. So I definitely think
Very
so.
like Shakespearean language.
Yes. Did you
Punches will
see
be thrown.
Danny said, "Oh, and you're the cat and I'm the mouse."
Oh,
or
Tom
something.
and
I was
Jerry, like,
that was crazy.
Who prevails?
It's part of the patterns. At this point, we kind of know what each character kind of is, and they keep doing similar things in new fashions.
This is a really good call by Joseph Boza. He says Ben will quit because of the stress of this charter, and Bravo needs Ben on the original Below Deck. That's right, because when he comes to the other Below Deck,
Joseph.
it was like midway through. Oh, that could be
Interesting.
a
If
good
Ben
call.
quits, I quit. No, I'm kidding.
No, he probably will have to
Ben's
leave
just-
early
you
because
think?
he's like a staple on the Below Deck franchise. I mean, he hops around. So
What if they bring in a female chef and the female chef and Jen hit it off?
Oh, that would
Yeah,
be
we
good.
need some
God.
action for Jen.
Yeah.
Also,
Wow.
Poor girl.
You just blew my mind right there. That was crazy. What?
That's my prediction.
That's
there we
amazing
go.
prediction. If that happens, wow. That's like, I wasn't even thinking about
That's
that.
really good.
That's really good. That's like
would be
deep.
good.
Thanks, guys.
I also want to see more of Captain. I feel like I really
Yeah.
like him, and I
Captain
want to
Mark.
see more of like
Yes.
his family story or just another layer of him.
How does he like cope with not being with his wife and kids? Like, yeah, I want to Captain Mark. I want to see more of you and what's going
Uh-oh.
on in your life.
Watch out, Bobby.
Bobby, you got.
Bobby's still in the chat. I'm moving on. Sorry.
Yeah,
He's probably like, good riddance.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to tweet us, comment on YouTube, download, rate, and subscribe. We always love to hear what you think. And throughout the week, too, you can always just tell us if you think of something and you want to tell us. We love to hear it.
Yeah.
I'm your host, Jamie Banks, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at JamieBanks_. And
I'm Angela Struck, and you can tweet me at @theAngelaStruck and find me on Instagram and Snapchat at Angela Struck.
And I'm Madison Conklin. You can find me on Twitter at Maddie Says This and on Instagram at Conklin, CONKLYNN.
You're so punny. My name is Michael Rippe. You can find me on social media at Mike Rips. It's right here. I'll see you next week, guys.
bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks so much for tuning in.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.